The moment the sun dips below the horizon in Southeast Asia, something extraordinary happens. Cities that buzzed with commerce and traffic suddenly pulse with a different kind of energy. Neon lights flicker to life. Music spills from doorways. The air itself seems to vibrate with anticipation. From the rooftop bars of Bangkok to the underground clubs of Manila, from the riverside lounges of Ho Chi Minh City to the precision-engineered party zones of Singapore. Southeast Asia after dark is unlike anywhere else on Earth. Tonight, we're pulling back the curtain on what really happens when these cities transform, and why millions of travelers and locals alike find themselves drawn into this magnetic world where ancient traditions collide with ultra-modern hedonism. Bangkok. The name alone conjures images that have captivated imaginations for decades. But forget everything you think you know, because the reality is far more complex and fascinating than any stereotype. This is a city of 8 million people living multiple lives simultaneously. By day, they're office workers, street vendors, students, parents. By night, Bangkok splinters into 1,000 different worlds, each with its own rules, its own rhythm, its own secrets. The question isn't whether Bangkok's nightlife is intense, it's which Bangkok you're talking about. The city doesn't have one nightlife, it has dozens, layered on top of each other like a fever dream painted in neon and shadow. Start in Thonglor, where Bangkok's wealthy young elite gather in venues that wouldn't look out of place in Manhattan or Monaco. These aren't the Bangkok nights you've seen in movies. This is where Thai socialites, entrepreneurs, and creatives sip 1,000-baht cocktails in rooftop bars with infinity pools that reflect the city's glittering skyline. The music is international house and hip-hop. The fashion is cutting edge. The conversations happen in a fluid mix of Thai and English, peppered with words borrowed from Japanese, Korean, and whatever's trending on social media that week. Women here are fashion-forward, confident, highly educated. Many studied abroad and returned to build careers in Thailand's booming creative and tech industries. Romance in this world operates on the same frequency as Los Angeles or London. Dating apps, carefully curated Instagram feeds, the eternal dance of attraction performed through screens before bodies ever meet. But travel 20 minutes across the city to Khao San Road, and you're in an entirely different universe. This is Backpacker Central, where travelers from every corner of the globe collide in a carnival of cheap beer, street food, and the kind of reckless energy that only comes from being far from home with no plans tomorrow. The famous street has evolved beyond its reputation as a backpacker ghetto. Now it's where local Thai youth mix with international travelers, creating this wild cultural exchange where everyone's trying on identities like clothes. You'll see Buddhist monks walking past fire dancers. You'll hear Australian accents mixing with Thai bargaining with German techno. This is where cultural boundaries dissolve in buckets of whiskey and Red Bull. Where strangers become friends, become lovers in the span of hours. Where everyone's writing their own adventure story in real time. Then, there's RCA Royal City Avenue, where massive clubs pack in thousands of young Thais every weekend. This is local nightlife, raw and unfiltered. The music is a mix of Thai pop, EDM, and hip-hop, often blending all three in the same track. The crowds are young, energetic, and dressed to impress in ways that blend Korean fashion trends with Thai street style with whatever's hot on TikTok. Here's what strikes foreigners immediately. Thai nightlife operates on a different social frequency. Groups of friends stick together with an almost impenetrable loyalty. Women dance in tight circles, protecting each other, moving as units rather than individuals. Men approach with a playfulness that seems almost choreographed. There's a ritual to it, a dance of respect and interest that's both formal and spontaneous. The clubs stay open until dawn, and watching the crowd at 4 a.m. is like witnessing people existing in pure, unfiltered joy. They're not drinking to forget or escape. They're celebrating the simple fact of being young and alive and free. If you really want to understand Bangkok's complexity, you need to talk about the darker layers that exist alongside all this celebration. The city has a reputation, and some of it is earned. Certain districts cater specifically to foreign men seeking specific experiences. And yes, that world exists, but here's what gets lost in sensationalized documentaries. That's not most of Bangkok's nightlife, and it's not most Thai women's experience. The reality is messier and more human than the stereotypes. Thailand's sex industry exists at the intersection of poverty, rapid economic development, rural to urban migration, and complex social factors that defy simple explanations. Some people work in these industries by choice, some by circumstance, some by coercion. Painting everyone with the same brush does a disservice to the actual humans involved. What's rarely discussed is how this affects ordinary Thai people navigating modern romance. Young Thai women in Bangkok face constant assumptions based on their city's reputation. They deal with foreign men who arrive with preconceptions about Thai women being submissive or available stereotypes that real Thai women find exhausting and insulting. Meanwhile, Thai men navigate their own pressures, traditional expectations that they'll be providers, modern economic realities that make that difficult, and changing gender dynamics as Thai women become increasingly independent and career-focused. The nightlife becomes a space where all these tensions play out, where traditional courtship rituals meet dating apps, where arranged marriages coexist with hookup culture, where Buddhist values about restraint bump against advertising that sells desire. Let me tell you about Ploy. She's 27, works in marketing for a tech startup, and goes out most Friday nights with her university friends. For her, nightlife is about decompression and connection, a few hours where she doesn't have to be the dutiful daughter or the ambitious employee. She can just dance, laugh, maybe flirt with someone interesting. She's on dating apps, but finds them frustrating because many foreign men match with her hoping for easy experiences, while many Thai men expect more traditional relationship dynamics than she wants. Her nightlife experience is probably typical of millions of young Thai women, but it's not the version that makes it into viral videos or sensationalized content. It's just normal life, lived in a city that happens to come alive spectacularly after dark. Now let's shift to Manila, because if Bangkok is complex, Manila is absolute chaos and Filipinos wouldn't have it any other way. The Philippines has a nightlife culture that blends Spanish colonial influence, American pop culture, indigenous celebration traditions, and a unique Filipino warmth that makes strangers feel like family within minutes. Manila's nightlife districts like Poblacion and BGC pulse with an energy that's simultaneously laid back and intense. Filipinos know how to party, but there's an inclusiveness to it that feels different from other cities. You're not just allowed to join the fun, you're actively pulled into it. Karaoke is religion here. Not the private booths of Tokyo, but open-air video key bars, where strangers take turns belting out power ballads, and everyone cheers regardless of talent. Music is the language everyone speaks fluently. Filipino musicians are legendary across Asia. They staff hotel bands from Dubai to Tokyo, and you hear that musical culture in every nightlife venue. Live bands are everywhere, covering everything from classic rock to K-pop to OPM, original Filipino music, with equal enthusiasm. The crowds sing along to every word, creating this collective energy that turns every night out into a concert where everyone's both performer and audience. Romance in Manila operates on a fascinating mix of conservative Catholic values and pragmatic modernity. The Philippines is one of 2 countries in the world where divorce is illegal, yet dating culture is surprisingly progressive. Filipinos are extraordinarily romantic grand gestures, intense courtship, declarations of feeling that would seem over the top in more reserved cultures. But they're also practical about relationships. Many young Filipinos are on dating apps, navigating long-distance relationships, figuring out how to balance family expectations with personal desires. The nightlife creates space for this negotiation. You can be the good Catholic son or daughter by day and explore different sides of yourself by night, without those identities necessarily conflicting. What makes Manila's nightlife remarkable is how it reflects Filipino resilience and joy despite economic hardship. The Philippines has a massive wealth gap, yet nightlife spaces manage to be more democratized than in many other cities. A street-side drinking session with San Miguel beer and grilled food can be just as fun as an expensive club. Filipinos have this incredible ability to create celebration out of almost nothing. It's cultural muscle memory developed through generations of finding joy despite colonization. Natural disasters, political chaos, and economic struggle. The nightlife isn't escapism so much as affirmation. We're still here, we're still alive, and we're going to enjoy it. Ho Chi Minh City, or Saigon as locals still call it, represents Southeast Asia's fastest transformation. This city was devastated by war just 50 years ago. Now it's a relentless engine of economic growth, and nowhere is that more visible than in its exploding nightlife scene. Saigon's nightlife has a raw, unfinished quality that makes it incredibly exciting. Everything feels new and experimental. Rooftop bars offer stunning views of a skyline that seems to sprout new towers weekly. Underground clubs and converted warehouses host DJs from around the world. Street-level baye hoi spots. Traditional beer joints pack sidewalks with plastic stools where locals and travelers mix over cheap beer and endless plates of food. The Vietnamese approach to nightlife blends French colonial influences with traditional Vietnamese sociability with modern global trends. Coffee culture here is intense. Vietnam is the world's second largest coffee exporter, and that caffeine love extends into nightlife. Many Vietnamese start their evenings with strong café sua da before transitioning to beer and cocktails. The social pace is different too. Vietnamese nightlife tends to start earlier and end earlier than Bangkok or Manila, with peak energy happening between 9 p.m. and midnight rather than after midnight. Dating in Vietnam is undergoing dramatic shifts as the country opens up economically and culturally. Traditional expectations still hold significant weight. Family approval matters enormously, but young Vietnamese are increasingly asserting independence in choosing partners. The nightlife creates spaces where modern Vietnamese youth can explore identities separate from family surveillance. Women are becoming more assertive in expressing romantic and sexual desires, challenging generations of Confucian-influenced modesty expectations. Men are navigating changing expectations too, figuring out what masculinity means in a modernizing Vietnam. What's fascinating about Saigon is watching traditional and modern coexist in the same space. You'll see young women in AO-dyed traditional Vietnamese dresses having drinks in ultra-modern bars. You'll encounter businessmen discussing deals over rice wine using rituals that haven't changed in centuries. The city is writing new rules in real time, and the nightlife is where those rules get tested. Singapore represents the opposite end of the spectrum. Nightlife engineered with the same precision as everything else in this remarkably controlled city-state. Clark Quay, Marina Bay, Haji Lane. Each nightlife district has been carefully designed, regulated, and optimized. The clubs are world-class. The rooftop bars are architectural marvels. The sound systems are pristine. Everything works exactly as intended. Some people find this sterile. Others find it liberating. You can let loose without worrying about safety, scams, or chaos. What Singapore does brilliantly is create nightlife that appeals to its incredibly diverse population. This tiny nation is Chinese, Malay, Indian, and international expat all at once, and the nightlife reflects that. You can experience a different culture's approach to celebration every night of the week. The alcohol is expensive. Singapore isn't cheap, but that creates a nightlife culture focused more on quality than quantity. People aren't drinking to oblivion. They're sipping carefully crafted cocktails while engaging in conversations that might turn into business connections, romantic possibilities, or genuine friendships. Dating in Singapore is probably the most globalized in Southeast Asia. Singaporeans are highly educated, well-traveled, and comfortable with international relationship dynamics. Dating apps are ubiquitous. Inter-ethnic relationships are common, but underneath all this modernity, traditional pressures still exist. Expectations about career success, housing stability, and family approval before serious relationships progress. The nightlife becomes one of the few spaces where Singaporeans can temporarily escape the pressure cooker expectations of this achievement-obsessed society. Let's talk about what makes Southeast Asian nightlife fundamentally different from Western nightlife cultures. In New York or London or Berlin, nightlife often emphasizes individualism. You go out to express yourself, to be seen as an individual, to pursue personal pleasure. In Southeast Asia, even the wildest nightlife retains a communal quality. You go out with your group. You look after each other. The concept of leaving a friend behind is nearly unthinkable. This creates a different safety dynamic. Women can navigate nightlife with more confidence because they're protected by tight friend networks. But it also means that connecting with someone outside your group requires navigating social barriers that don't exist in more individualistic cultures. The relationship between nightlife and social hierarchy is also more visible in Southeast Asia. In Bangkok or Manila, where you party often reflects your social class, and those boundaries are harder to cross than in more socially mobile Western cities. The ultra-wealthy party in venues that are almost invisible to ordinary people. The middle class has its own circuits. Working class nightlife happens in entirely different spaces. This stratification is uncomfortable for Western visitors who are used to at least the illusion of nightlife as a great equalizer. Here's something most documentaries ignore: the massive role that technology is playing in reshaping Southeast Asian nightlife and romance. Dating apps have exploded in popularity across the region, but they're being used in culturally specific ways. In Thailand, Line is as important as any dating app. Friend groups coordinate nights out through endless group chats, and romantic interests are often evaluated through their social media presence before any in-person meeting. In the Philippines, Facebook remains dominant for both organizing nightlife and facilitating romance. In Vietnam, Zalo serves similar functions. These platforms allow young Southeast Asians to navigate traditional expectations while pursuing modern desires. You can be exploring romantic options online while appearing dutiful to family offline. The economics of nightlife in Southeast Asia also tell important stories. Foreign tourism dollars have shaped nightlife infrastructure in ways that benefit some locals while creating complicated dependencies for others. The pandemic devastated nightlife industries across the region, revealing how many people from DJs to bartenders to venue owners to street food vendors depend on nightlife economies. As cities have reopened, nightlife has bounced back with remarkable speed, but it's changing. There's more focus on local rather than foreign customers. There's more emphasis on unique cultural experiences rather than generic international club culture. Music deserves its own discussion because it's the heartbeat of Southeast Asian nightlife. Thai pop music, Filipino OPM, Vietnamese V-pop, Indonesian dangdut. Every country has thriving local music industries that shape nightlife soundtracks. But there's also fascinating musical cross-pollination happening. K-pop has become hugely influential across the entire region. EDM is universal. Hip-hop has been adapted with local languages and cultural references. The result is a nightlife soundtracks that feel simultaneously local and global, familiar and foreign, traditional and cutting edge. Let's address something important: safety and risk in Southeast Asian nightlife. Every major nightlife city has dangerous drink spiking, scams, violence, exploitation. Southeast Asia is no exception. But the risk profile is different than many Western cities. Gun violence is rare. Random street violence is uncommon. The dangers tend to be more subtle. Drinks that cost far more than expected. Tuk-tuk drivers who take scenic routes to inflate fares. People who befriend tourists with ulterior motives. Being aware and cautious is important. But the fear-mongering that often surrounds Southeast Asian nightlife is overblown and often has racist undertones that paint these cities as more dangerous than they actually are for the vast majority of people. For LGBTQ+ people, Southeast Asian nightlife is a mixed experience. Thailand has a relatively open and visible gay scene, particularly in Bangkok and Phuket, though legal protections remain limited. The Philippines has a surprisingly visible LGBTQ+ presence in nightlife, despite Catholic conservatism. Filipino attitudes toward gender and sexuality have indigenous roots that predate Spanish colonization. Vietnam and Singapore have growing but still cautious LGBTQ+ nightlife scenes. Across the region, nightlife spaces offer LGBTQ+ people freedoms they might not experience in more public or family settings. But acceptance varies dramatically based on location and context. The relationship between alcohol and nightlife varies significantly across Southeast Asia. In Muslim-majority areas of Malaysia and Indonesia, alcohol is restricted or prohibited, creating different nightlife cultures focused on coffee shops, live music venues, and late-night food scenes. In the Philippines and Thailand, drinking culture is central to nightlife. Singapore regulates alcohol heavily with high taxes and restricted hours. These different approaches create vastly different nightlife experiences even within the same region. Food is absolutely integral to Southeast Asian nightlife in ways that might surprise visitors from cultures where nightlife means clubs and bars. Some of the best food in Bangkok, Manila, or Saigon is available only late at night from street vendors who emerge after dark. Night markets become social hubs. Late-night eating isn't just drunk food, it's culinary experiences that are often more authentic and interesting than restaurant dining. The nightlife experience isn't complete without pad kra pao at 2 a.m. in Bangkok, balut and sisig in Manila at midnight, or banh mi and pho in Saigon before sunrise. What does all this mean for someone trying to understand Southeast Asian nightlife? First, abandon simple narratives. This isn't just party destinations for tourists or dangerous cities full of traps or exotic locations where Western fantasies play out. These are complex modern cities where millions of real people live complete lives that include going out and having fun and seeking connection. Second, recognize that nightlife reveals cultural values in fascinating ways. How people interact, what they celebrate, how they navigate tradition and modernity, how they pursue joy despite hardship. Third, understand that your experience of these cities' nightlife will be shaped enormously by who you are, what you're seeking, and how you choose to engage. If you go to Bangkok seeking only the stereotypes, You'll find them, but you'll miss the incredible diversity of experiences available. If you go to Manila expecting a generic Asian party city, you'll be unprepared for the warmth and musicality that makes Filipino nightlife unique. If you treat these cities as playgrounds for foreign desires without respecting the real people who live there, you'll have shallow experiences and likely contribute to problems rather than enjoying genuine connection. The future of Southeast Asian nightlife is being written right now by a generation that's more connected, more educated, and more globally aware than any before them. They're taking traditional Southeast Asian values around community and celebration and remixing them with global influences and modern technology. They're creating nightlife cultures that are distinctly their own, not copies of Western models, but unique expressions of what it means to be young and Southeast Asian in the 21st century. So yes, Bangkok's nights are intense. So are Manila's, Saigon's, and Singapore's. But they're not crazy because of hot women or exotic otherness. They're fascinating because they're incredibly complex cultural spaces where tradition and modernity collide, where local and global influences blend, where millions of people are figuring out how to live authentic lives in rapidly changing societies. That's the real story of Southeast Asian nightlife, and it's far more interesting than any stereotype. If this has sparked your curiosity, drop a comment telling me which Southeast Asian city you'd most want to experience after dark and why. Subscribe if you want more real, nuanced explorations of how people actually live in cities around the world. And hit that like button if you appreciate content that goes deeper than surface-level stereotypes. The world is endlessly fascinating when you actually pay attention to it. Let's keep exploring together.